Beep, 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 beep. Welcome to the Court of EDI Digester. Hello, everybody. How are you? Become a warrior teacher. I'm not going to say it. Right. Now, a few weeks back, you may recall the thrill of it all. Michelle Donnellan wrote a missive to UKRI, the United Kingdom Research and Innovation folks who control the God knows how much billion pound that goes into universities that is currently being hived off by EDI grifters, right? Do you remember this letter? They said something, they made comments about Hamas or something, right? Hamas, right? Okay, and not happy. So she sent by the end of the day, and the person that runs UKRI sort of went, okay, because there's not much else you can say, can you? When the representative of the people tells you that you're grifting, you have to stop the grift, right? Now, so I've come across this interesting article on a place called Reciprocal Space, which is called occamstypewriter.org, right? This individual says that this is about the Michelle Donnellan UKRI thing, but it's interesting because it's a different view on it. The letter below started out as a closed communication on the 11th of October, but in the absence of any response, despite two reminders, and the revelation in the meantime that the Secretary of State herself sometimes has occasion to write up open letters, I have decided to publish it. Although my letter precedes the furore ignited by Michelle Donnellan's missive to UKRI, which is what I talked about before, raising her concerns about tweets by members of Research England's Equality, Diversity and Inclusionary Advisory group, it touches on a related issue, the use and interpretation of evidence in political discourse on matters that are central to research in higher education. Donnellan's UKR letter put a very particular spin on a small number of words and a few tweets and proceeded to call for the disbandment of an EDI committee that has yet to meet. Good. Right? It seems that the greater diligence was needed to ascertain whether or not the individuals involved are actually biased in a way that would compromise their role as advisors on EDI before any challenge is made regarding their participation in the committee. It would also have been more rigorous of the Secretary of State to have provided a rationale for a call to disband the committee completely. Now that's interesting because the person thinks they're fine, right? Whereas I think if it says EDI, it's a grift. I know because I used to work in it, right? It wasn't a grift when I did it, but then nobody does it like I do it. So it's a grift, right? Okay, so the issues involved here, attitudes to the Israeli-Hamas conflict, and in my letter, a request for clarifications of claims made by Michelle Donnellan with regards to questions of sex and gender, are complex and important. They deserve serious attention. They're not. Right? But let's go on and see why they say they are. This means that any and all discussions would pay particular attention to the totality of evidence rather than being selective with the facts. Of course, the difference between scholarly and political discourse is very often located in the way that facts are used. The best scholarship will embrace all relevant information, including that which might contradict an argument that is being advanced. Have you met most gender academics? By contrast, it is in the nature of the rough and tumble of politics for people to play a faster, looser game. It's more fun, isn't it, as well? Do you think? In reality, the differences are not always so marked. We all, scholars and politicians alike, cling to our predilections and worldviews. Our minds are not changed so easily, but none of us has a monopoly on the whole truth. This is why it is important to try to be open-minded and curious about what people we disagree with and are really thinking. I still hope, therefore, to get an answer to my letter and a clear insight into the mind of the Secretary of State. On the face of it, she and I see the facts differently and have different views on the importance of work to promote equality, diversity and inclusion within our universities and research institutions, but I'm curious to know if there is scope to explore what commonalities there might be between our perspectives. So there's an individual saying, all right, yes, but let's have a convo. Okay? They're an EDI believer, so, I'm immediately sceptical, and as they point out, we play a faster, looser game here. So here's the letter. Dear Secretary of State, I write in a personal capacity as a scientist who has spent their entire professional life working in academia and been closely involved in addressing a range of issues related to research culture. These include the impact of incentive structures and efforts to create a more diverse, inclusive and productive academy. As I'm sure you're aware, these are knotty subjects. I was pleased to read of your commitment to facts and evidence in your speech to the Conservative Party conference last week, but troubled by some of the vaguer claims made about the slow creep of wokeism. I realise party conferences are occasions for rallying the troops, but you touched on complex issues that require serious deliberation, not least because of the impact they can have on the people most affected by them. Here it comes. Here comes the power and oppression narratives. Wait for it. Therefore, there are 2 points in your speech on which I would be grateful for a clarification of the facts. First, you said that Scotland's chief statistician had issued guidance to the effect that data on sex can only be collected in exceptional circumstances. I've had a look at the guidance document, but did not get a sense that that was his intention. Please could you or someone in your team point me to the sections where your claim is substantiated? Second, you said that scientists are being told by university bureaucrats that can ask legitimate research questions about biological sex. Could you please list the instances where this has happened that you had in mind? I'm sure James Esses and maybe others will add to this conversation, maybe on my YouTube, and provide this person with what they need. If there are very many of these, could you please show the instances? Then perhaps just mention 4 or 5 that you consider the most disturbing. I'm bound to say I have not come across such direct interference in my own work in science or in the EDI space. I am fully aware that questions of sex and gender are discussed, often in an uninformed and ill-tempered manner in the media and social media. But in my experience, universities grapple very carefully with these questions. There is no grappling. Gender is nonsense. This is, of course, a rapidly evolving discourse around sex and gender. No, there isn't. So they're rapidly devolving. Right? Rapidly devolving. That's why it's crucial. It says here it's rapidly evolving around sex and gender, and that one that is important for our society is not important at all. Professor Curry. It's not important at all. This is, of course, a rapidly evolving discourse around sex and gender, and one that is important for our society. No. That is why it's crucial for us to create a space for constructive dialogue. Perhaps this is your aim with the investigation to be led by Professor Alice Sullivan. I hope that will provide an opportunity for an informed discussion that is broad enough to embrace not just academic and policy research, but the women and LGBT communities closest to the matter. Yours faithfully, Professor Stephen Curry. Right? It's a typical academic letter. One shouldn't really have a problem with most of what's said in there, apart from the fact that they're a true believer. So this is Professor Stephen Curry who said this, and I've not up until this point had a look yet, so I'm going to have a look with you while we're online. Let's see what we can find out about Stephen Curry, because this is the sort of thing that you need to do. I do it normally, but I just didn't have time to do it there. Professor Stephen Curry, right? Is it Imperial College London? If this is the same person, he's at the Faculty of Natural Sciences, etc., etc. He's a member of the department. Yeah, so he's done all that stuff, right? This is a well tenured academic. This is a gentleman who knows what he's talking about, which leads me to ask the question: why, Stephen Curry, are you pretending that the LGBTQ exists? Don't you dare lump gay men in with these nutters. Right? Don't you dare lump them in with the equity push-in, mad left lunatics of the LGBTQI cult. Don't do it. It's not on, Stephen. Right? It's not on. It really isn't. You know, you're a scientist, you're a biologist, for God's sake, molecular research, from what I can gather. You need to get away from this nonsense and stop interfering in areas you don't understand. EDI needs to go across the board because it is eating money and eating your time. And if you don't see that, despite the fact that you're a well-credentialed and and very well published man, and obviously are very good at what you do, you need to take a close look at what you're supporting. The mutilation of gay children, how about that? Not just their minds, but their bodies, if given the chance in certain countries. How about that? The homophobia of the TQ plus lobby. What does the plus mean, Stephen? What does it mean? Get back to the drawing board, mate, because you're obviously a smart man, who incidentally is doing the subject that if I ever got the chance I would have done, biology. Right? You're a smart bloke. You should not be pushing this homophobia. You should not be pretending that EDI is anything but a divisive, equity-driven, hard-left nonsense that we need to get out of universities and everywhere else. I don't know why you're doing it, but it's the homophobia I can't stand. LGBT. Don't you dare conflate gay men with these nutters. Don't you dare. There you are. That's my rant about Stephen Curry, who, from all I've read, is a very reasonable man. I'm not. All right? Good luck, everybody. Jester out.